So, this is another sort of experimental video for me. Basically, it's just going to be me going into why I backed something on Kickstarter or another crowdfunding website, what I thought looked cool or interesting about it, and where I see any potential problems, if any. This sort of thing is going to be shorter form, not as detailed as a full-on review or critique since it's not a finished game. I'm only planning on doing this on games with playable demos, and it's going to be on a very irregular schedule since it just depends on when a crowdfunding thing interests me enough to do this. All of that housekeeping out of the way, I'm Kalice, and I backed Haiku the robot. Here's why. This is one of those passion projects primarily made by one guy. Jordan Morris seems to be doing everything himself with the exception of the music. Pretty much as indie as you can get. He's worked on some smaller projects before, none of which I'm familiar with. Haiku the Robot is a Metroidvania platformer action game about usually adorable and sometimes horrifying robots post-human apocalypse and possibly during a robot apocalypse. That meaning that the robots are in danger of dying, not that they're killing the humans. Gosh, don't be so ethnocentric. Morris is upfront about his primary inspirations, and they're pretty much what you would expect for a Metroidvania. Symphony of the Night, Super Metroid, and Hollow Knight. Fair enough, that is the list of Metroidvanias. You have a jump, of course, and your primary means of combat is a sword with a short combo. Two things became immediately evident when I was playing the demo, both very simple but very important. It feels good and it looks good. Game feel is one of those things that can seem pretty straightforward but is actually incredibly complicated. It involves the feedback of pushing buttons, the visuals, the sounds, how enemies respond to attacks, and it can even extend to things like enemy placement, variety, how the player's moveset interacts with those things, and game flow. Game feel is very often what determines if a game is just okay or truly amazing, and while this demo is just a vertical slice, I can confidently say that Haiku is off to a wonderful start. Every jump, slash, and power-up looks, sounds, and feels amazing. There is one caveat I had to this, and it has to do with the camera while moving. Haiku is offset slightly from the center of the screen, and the camera shifts when you start moving so you can see more of the screen in the direction that you're moving. If you turn around and then immediately stop moving, the camera movement can be jarring. As long as you continue your momentum, it looks fine. I don't think it's a big issue most of the time, but there's also a much more noticeable camera shift when you change into ball form for your tight corridors. There's those Metroid inspirations, and the doors, and the music. The camera shift when you turn around also becomes more extreme in ball form to the point that it was jarring whenever I turned around at all like that. This is notable because it's the only part of the demo that I thought actually felt bad. I'm very much hoping this is tweaked by the final release, but it was nowhere near a deal breaker for getting my support, as you can tell by the fact that I'm here, making this video. On the look, first and foremost, Haiku is absolutely adorable. Look at their little running animation. Oh, this robot is trying their best, and I already love them. The vast majority of the enemy designs, at least those in the demo, are adorable, actually, and all of the visuals are impressive. I absolutely adore pixel art, but there are a lot of modern games that use pixel art as their entire art direction. Like, their aesthetic is specifically retro, chasing the look of yesteryear, which is fine, but feels limiting. In modern games, I prefer pixel art that functions as the medium, not the entire visual direction. In this game, Haiku, the enemies, and NPCs primarily use blacks and whites for colors. The background of the demo level primarily uses yellow as a color, and some enemies here also have bits of yellow on their designs. Other levels shown on the Kickstarter page follow this style with a different background color used for each level. Presumably, most of the enemies and NPCs for those levels will follow this design philosophy as well. I like this look a lot. It rides the line between simplistic and striking, referential and unique. I really desperately want to see more. The music is great so far. There's a mostly subdued sci-fi-ish soundtrack, which makes sense for robots. It reminds me a lot of Metroid, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. The boss fight, however, features a faster-paced action/horror track. It's really good. Haiku actually features my favorite low health indicator that I've ever come across. In a lot of games, a shrill sound will repeat to indicate you're on low health, or like your health bar will pulse distractingly, or your vision will start to be obscured, which can unnecessarily cover part of the screen. In Haiku, when you're a hit from dead, the entire soundscape changes to be more dire and harsh, and there's like a heavy bass thrumming in the background. It's unobtrusive, easily noticeable, and stylish. I really fucking like it. As a Metroidvania, there are of course upgrades that improve your ability to navigate your environment, opening up paths that were once closed. Every upgrade seems like it functions both in and out of combat, except for maybe the Metroid-style ball roll, unless certain enemies or bosses start having a mechanic that has something to do with that. So yeah, there's the ball form, a double jump, and a bomb in the demo. The bomb functions on a cooldown timer and can be used to kill enemies or destroy certain obstacles in the environment. That timer is shortened if you kill enemies, which is an idea that I like. Everything in the demo in this respect is pretty standard, but they all feel good, so that's fine by me. There's also a dash and a grapple listed on the Kickstarter page. That grapple sounds like the most potentially interesting upgrade to me, but that will depend on how it's implemented, of course. Enemies drop currency. These will apparently be used to purchase upgrades, but there's not really an indication of what that will entail at the moment, so the currency doesn't have a use in the demo, but that's how these things go sometimes. It's fine. The setting and tone are also very interesting and appealing to me. It's a rather dire post-apocalypse. Humanity is dead, or at least mostly dead, and a virus is infecting many of the machines that remain, seemingly causing them to become violent. The surface aesthetic is generally cute, but things occasionally get more disturbing. I think it rides the line between this well, and some of my favorite things like Undertale and Madoka Magica do something similar, so that's good in my book. I have a couple of theories about why our robotic friend is named Haiku. The story pitch mentions that Haiku is meant to bring order to the world, which could tie into the rigid structure of haiku poetry. Theming. It could also be an intentional contradiction. Traditionally, haiku poetry is meant to be about nature, so having a machine with that name is an interesting choice. It's also possible that Morris just likes haikus and thought it would be a cute name, which it is, so good job on that. I also had a galaxy brain thought, and that thought is that Haiku, the robot, which is the title of this game with the comma and everything, could be the start of a haiku in of itself. And there could be like sequels or expansions or something that have 7 syllables and then 5 syllables as a title, and then you put it all together and it reads like one haiku. I think that would be really, really clever and really interesting. Yeah. And I apologize if that was totally the plan from the start and I just spoiled it, but oh well. Right now it's unclear exactly how the story will be implemented. There's an NPC you can talk to in the demo that gives a bit of world building and flavor, but that's pretty much it. The Kickstarter page mentions a tragic backstory for the mini-boss in the demo that ties into stuff about the virus and is potentially informative about how it works, but that tragic backstory isn't present anywhere in the demo itself. I like the ideas being presented for the story, I just hope that those ideas come together in a satisfying way. Gameplay-wise, my favorite part of the demo was the mini-boss. It was fun, interesting, and fast-paced. That second phase is a blast. I found it to be difficult, but not so difficult as to be unfair. If this is an indication of the quality of the rest of the boss fights that Haiku will contain, I am very excited for those. However, there's not a checkpoint near the boss chamber, which meant a run back to the boss upon failure. This wasn't the biggest deal here, but I could imagine that would become potentially infuriating if ever there was a boss that I got stuck on for hours. Also, there's no map in the demo. There will be one in the final game, but I did have some trouble navigating without one. So yeah, a delightful and disturbing game about adorable robots and also the end of days. This is very much to my taste, thank you. There's about a week left in the Kickstarter. It's already reached its funding goal, but of course there are stretch goals too. If you're interested in checking out the Kickstarter or trying the demo for yourself, the link is in the description of this video. This has been Kalice, thanks for watching. You can like the video, subscribe, or share this video around if you enjoyed it and want to. My Patreon exists if you'd like to support me. There's neat bonuses like access to my Discord server and the ability to vote in polls to determine future content on the channel, so feel free to go look at that if you'd like. Speaking of, big thanks to all of my current patrons like Lada, Edith, and Sam, all of whom are really cool people. Keep loving what you love, and I'll see you next time with something else. I'll be completely honest, I am tempted to get that mug so I can sip hot chocolate out of a super slick aesthetic. It also means I've got to come up with a message for the backer area. Shit.